So hey guys, what's up? So welcome to my news channel. So starting from the first news, why the US-China trade war has not helped India analysis. In fact, since Trump moved to the Oval Office, the US trade deficit with China has increased by more than $1 trillion. In comparison, during the first 32 months of the Obama second term, the US deficit was a little over 900 billion. The long-standing trade disputes between the United States and China turned into a full-blown war last year, with each country slapping tit-for-tat rates on Monday imported from the another. Predictably, economic hostility between the world's two largest economies rattled global markets. However, a few countries in China's neighborhood saw opportunities in the trade war between the two giants, with India being one of them. Several economists and analysts predicted that India would be a primary beneficiary of the biggest trade war of this millennium. This was based on two assumptions. One, more and more US companies would move out of China and set up shop in India to avoid paying the higher American tariffs. Two, some Chinese firms that are suppliers to American companies would shift their productions to maneuver around the US tariffs. More than later, those predictions have not planned out. A review of data from the US Department of Commerce, which keeps track of the America's bilateral trade with partner countries, revealed that India gains have been only marginal. In 2018, the trade in goods between India and the United States was $87.9 billion, up from $74.2 billion in 2017. This year, through August, their bilateral trade was $62.7 billion compared to the $58.2 billion in the first 8 months of the 2018. To date, Vietnam seems to be the only country in China's neighborhood to have benefited from the Sino-American trade war. Why has India been unable to take advantage of this opportunity? There are three primary reasons. First and foremost, despite the proactive record tit for the tat rates, the US-China trade volume hasn't really slowed down that much, except in a few areas. The Commerce Department data shows that the trade in goods between the two countries has been worth more than $1 trillion. Since the beginning of the 2018, China's trade surplus against the US during the same period was more than $651 billion. The US trade deficit for the comparable 22-month period under Barack Obama administration from January 2014 to August 2015 was $583 billion. In other words, the US-China bilateral trade was 12% larger under Donald Trump. In fact, since Trump moved to the Oval Office, the US trade deficit with China has increased by more than $1 trillion. In comparison, during the first 32 months of the Obama second term, the US deficit was a little over $900 billion. What this suggests is that not many US companies or Chinese firms doing business with America have moved away from the mainland. A big reason for this is not that there were no viable alternatives notwithstanding the high tariffs. China continues to be a better option for American businesses than other countries. Second, if these businesses had decided to relocate, India was not, isn't it, in a position to replace China as the manufacturing base of the world. Despite the Narendra Modi administration's Make in India initiative had not made India significant progress in building the kind of the manufacturing infrastructure that would enable it to compete with the three of the East Asia, China, Japan and South Korea. According to the Brookings Institution, India's manufacturing output last year was less than $300 billion. By comparison, China's manufacturing output was more than $2 trillion. Despite the size of economy, India's manufacturing output was less than a third of the Japan and less than half of Germany. There are several factors that are hampering the growth of the manufacturing in the country, and inadequate infrastructure is one of them. While India has built some world-class airports in the past decade, it needs to be drastically upgrade its roads, railroads and ports, and in order to grow its manufacturing sector. To accomplish this country needs a huge inflow of the foreign investments, but due to the slow pace of the reforms, India has not able to attract the foreign direct investment. Under Prime Minister Modi, India has improved its ranking in the World Ease of Doing Business Index, which measures the regulatory environment is business friendly. India ranking came down to 77 last year among 190 economies from 132 in 2014, and it is now 63rd. To become a manufacturing hub, however, that ranking needs to be brought down below 50. The third major reason that India has been unable to take advantage of the US-China trade war is New Delhi's armed trade dispute with Washington. Despite with their closer strategic alignment in the recent decades, India and the United States have not been on the same page on trade. Those differences have played out in the open rapidly since Trump came into the White House in January 2017. Earlier this year, The US made a series of the moves on the trade front, including level tariff on Indian steel and aluminum last year, and terminated the generalized system of the preferences program benefits to New Delhi. Recently, the US has voiced displeasure with two new Indian regulations that affect US credit card companies such as Visa and MasterCard and e-commerce giants Amazon and Walmart. India and the US were expected to sign a major trade deal addressing more of these concerns during Modi's visit to the United States last month. It has been nearly a month, however, since the Prime Minister returned after his successful trip, and the two sides have not announced the counters of a deal yet. It may be too late for India to make any meaningful gains from the current US-China trade war in the near term, but with the United States and China being global competitors in every sphere, trade wars between them are certain to flare up again and again in the future. Given this, India would do well to take steps required to take advantage of that competition and to ensure that it doesn't miss the bus the next time around. So move to the next news. Remembering the South Asia Security Studies Guru. So Professor Stephen Philip Cohen, pioneer of the South Asian security study, who passed away on October 28 in the United States, will be remembered with affection and respect across a region that has explored and researched for more than 50 years. In a recent interview, the longtime professor of political science at the University of the Illinois Urbana-Champaign recalled that he had begun studying India as a young graduate student in 1964. In the larger context of the geopolitics of Asia, he had then argued that India could consider acquiring nuclear weapons. This view was very unorthodox one at time. Steve, as he preferred to be called, is refined his views about regional strategy developments over the years in many ways. The professional trajectory corresponded with the vagaries and contradictions that form the substance and the subtext of the complex and often troubled relationship between India and the US. The bilateral dynamic moved from the deep estrangement over security interests to contentious engagement in the 1974 to 2008 period. For those of us who were growing up in India in the 1970s, the dissonance in the India-US relationship was an article of faith. Many of us internalized the image of an ugly American as distilled from the Vietnam War and the US stance in the 1971 Bangladesh War, even though we were embarrassed about the food aid that India got from the US. It was against this backdrop that my association began with Steve in December 1990 at Edtech 1.5 meeting. When the Cold War was in its last stage, Prime Minister Chandrasekhar had just assumed office in a wobbly manner in November, and the US was preparing for liberation from Kuwait from Iraq. At that time, I was a young researcher at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. The Institute had been nominated as a nodal point for this meeting, and one was the equivalent of the ship's cat and a multitask novice Sherpa for this interaction in distinct Kadavatla. There was a period when there was no cell phone, no computers, and one moved on foot, bus two-wheelers from Chapel House to Saw Block to coordinate myriad activities. As I shuttled from one meeting to another to receive and relay agenda points, the most useful input given to me by a senior diplomat was there would be a banana peas and mishaps on both sides. But if there was a logjam, I was to contact a Professor Steve Cohen, who was part of the US team. There was the beginning of a long and fruitful association. Fortunately for me, it was transpired that Steve had spent a brief year at the Andhra University in Visakhapatnam on a research project in the mid-1970s when he learned of my local roots there. He jokingly added that he was considered to be an American agent engaged in espionage. Steve did some seminal work on the Pakistan Army, enjoyed access at the highest level, including the journal's Yellow Hawk, a proximity that caused unease and conjecture in Delhi that he was pro-Pakistani and hence anti-Indian. But his later work focused on India and the US South Asia policy. Author editor of the 12 major books and the numerous journal articles, team group scores of the young students and policymakers from the region, even as he created space for South Asian security studies in the US Academy. The more acclaimed scholars mentored by him, including Sumit Ganguly and Kanti Vajpayee and Kristen Fair, among others. Steve also served in the government as part of the policy planning staff of the US State Department. He later moved to the Brookings Institution, where he was the South Asian guru whose weekly roundtables were very popular for both research and policymakers. In later years, one recalls a more reflective Steve who had held create and irrigate a robust ecosystem for the South Asian security studies in the US, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. My last meeting with him was in the Cosmo Club in the DC a few years ago, where he was physically frail but mentally was very alert. Steve reminisced about Delhi, the IDCSA, how he both regretted and looked forward to his meetings with the legendary Don of the India Strategic Studies and father of the current external affairs minister S. Jaishankar, and the late Subramanian. For a young American scholar going to a separate house was like walking into the lion's den, but it was more valuable. In December 1990, the agenda for the Kazakh bilateral was about changing Asia and the profile of the China. The later body of Steve Kahn work developed on this trend in relation to the India-Pakistan discord. In 2011, he noted perceptively India's reluctance to compromise with the filing Pakistan notwithstanding. China would have every reason to oppose normalization and could probably offer Pakistan more reason not to settle than India could offer Pakistan to settle. Clearly, Steve Corbin was reading about the original tea leaves in a very astute and insightful manner from his graduate days in the 1960s to the current times. Even as the regional geopolitics has transported from the boundary of the Cold War to the massive flux, it now more fit into the our Professor Corbin. So move to the last news. Edtech platforms step up, tie up with university to offer add-ons. Edtech platforms are now looking beyond the market of the mid-career professionals looking to upgrade their skills, since they are now tying up with the colleges and university to offer students aimed at making them industry-ready, giving them experience in the field through projects and filling in gaps that remain in existing universities, particularly in the non-metro regions. In addition, they are helping youngsters prepare from the national and state level entrance exams. Institutes like the Lovely Professional University and the Manipal University have tied up Edtech platforms like the Coursera Simply Run and Upgrade to offer courses in data science, digital marketing, business analytics, and loan management. The idea is to keep the students in touch with the niche areas and specialization not covered on main street campuses. Partnering with the organization means we can give our students access to the best lectures in the world, as some of these organizations have access to the top of the international universities. Say Pratham Mittal, head of the new initiatives at the LPU. There are several ways that a student can sign up. One way is to take up optional course which give them certificate. Another is to enroll in a course that involves a project. A lot of colleges ask students to go into the field for industry-specific project as part of their curriculum, but it would be difficult to find the right opportunity. So as a student can take a course with us that involves project and get the required experience and certification, says Krishna Kamarsi of the Simply Learn. So if you like the video, so kindly subscribe to my channel.